Could I please introduce the filmmakers here, the co-directors of A Crude Awakening. This is Ray McCormack and Basil Gelbke. This film is fairly apocalyptic.
Yes, it is a bit of a downer, but we feel it's important nevertheless, and we try to make it as entertaining as possible.
Ray?
Some people say that the first reaction to the film is, it's a bit depressing, but actually it's a wake-up call.
Well, we'll get to hear what you think of the film after you see it, and we'll see you in the Q&A. Hope you enjoy it.
The great bulk of the world's oil was formed at just two very brief moments of extreme global warming 90 and 150 million years ago.
A Crude Awakening is a cautionary tale. It warns that the world's most precious and non-renewable energy source is quickly running out.
We are using this stuff up over 1 or 2 centuries.
The film cites the so-called peak oil theory of a top geoscientist, Dr. M. King Hubbert. He predicted global petroleum production would peak and then terminally decline, and he said the United States would peak by 1970.
He was virtually laughed out of his profession for making such a ridiculous prediction.
They couldn't picture ever running out of oil because it was everywhere and got on everything.
According to the film, more than half of the 92 oil-producing countries have peaked. And the only region which hasn't is the Middle East, with 2/3 of the world's oil.
All evidence points to the fact that the United States had plans to bring in U.S. companies in Iraq where they have previously not been allowed to operate.
With global oil demand almost doubling in the last 30 years, finding alternative energy sources is critical.
In the early 70s, over half the globe essentially didn't use any oil. Today, everybody is hooked.
But A Crude Awakening dismisses every alternative as unfeasible and claims that without oil, our world can sustain only 1 to 2 billion humans. Grim stuff.
A graduate student came to see me and he said, "Tell me, will my grandchildren ever ride in an airplane?" It was a gripping question because the answer might very well be no.
Are you all feeling a bit depressed? Yes. Oh dear. Let's talk about your depression openly, everybody. You know, what are we worried about?
I felt very flat after watching your movie, and I think possibly because it was so apocalyptic, full of doom and gloom, but there wasn't a sense for me of what you expected after it had finished.
The intention of the film was not to depress people, it's to shock them into action. The impression that perhaps, men and women in white coats will come along and save the day, we would have been misleading people, and two, would then people would just continue, living their lives as they do.
For every calorie that you eat in the United States, and probably a similar number in other industrialized nations, requires 10 calories of hydrocarbon energy.
You Google the phrase peak oil, you will find people who are already organising and preparing at a local level for a time when we have very little fossil fuel and not enough to go around.
One of my favourite things was obviously the archive that you had, the black and white one with the woman sitting in front of her vanity mirror.
Just for fun, let's take away all these articles dependent upon petroleum. Her hand mirror, cosmetics, perfume, and manicure set made of plastics.
We cannot live without this substance, can we?
No, and we take it entirely for granted. Oil's just there, we just go to the gas station and we fill up our car. So many things we do in our industrialized world depend on oil. And having a background in news journalism, I felt this was the most underreported story, and it needed telling. So
it's not so much a film about the oil industry, it's a film about all of us and our lifestyles and really how unsustainable they are.
But we're going to come to a time when we don't have oil.
What is the message here? Because you say that you don't want to let people off the hook. You want them to know that this is a real problem.
I think you can only go one step at a time, and I think these are the two big steps we can all take are to look at where we consume energy and sort of, at least try not to waste it and try and cut down where it makes sense. And the other one is to try and source, more and more of what we do buy and consume from as close to where we live as possible.
When we definitively reach peak oil, when it's not there anymore, do you see that it's going to get messy? Do you see some sort of social unrest going on, or?
Yes, I definitely think so. I think we're going to have some bumpy times ahead.
Oil is a magnet for war. Oil starts wars. If they want to continue to drive SUVs and have the cars and consume energy in the way they are, they will be in war after war.
Actually, we could be generating our electricity from mirrors in the deserts for the whole of Europe within a matter of 10 years. Why haven't you included that in your documentary?
We'd still have a transportation problem. I don't see how you can move lorries with solar energy, and I don't see how you can fly with solar energy. So still for transportation, oil is absolutely indispensable and irreplaceable.
What's your next step? Because it seems to me your next documentary is to be looking at the solutions.
I don't know. I got terribly depressed making this film. I want to do something a bit more funny and a bit more, you know. Ray usually says he wants to do a romantic comedy now.
It sounds like you should be making this documentary. Forget these two. They can make the romantic comedies.
I think it's one of those strange films where you do have a responsibility as filmmakers who've brought us into the cinema to provide, for want of a better word, a happy ending.
It depends, you know, to a large degree on what one considers a happy end. You know, for other people who want to continue driving their 4x4s, you know, what we might think, you know, what certain people might think is a happy end would be an absolute disaster.
6.0 liter, 325 horsepower with 380 foot-pounds of torque. It's going to get somewhere around 10 miles per gallon constant on the road.
What we need to do is return or at least become, you know, active citizens and take responsibility for this ourselves, you know, and not expect other people to do it on our behalf, including the filmmakers.
Could I please thank you all for joining us here at this special screening of A Crude Awakening. Thank you for joining us, both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Hello, folks. I'm a carbon atom, and since I'm an essential part of each of the hydrocarbons in crude oil, I'm here to give you the inside dope on gasoline.
From a substance that drives the world to the power of one man's right arm. On the streets of Kolkata, we meet a man who carries his unique family business, bringing cinema to the poorest of the poor.
Ladies and gentlemen, sit back and relax, because now we're going to take you on the ride of your life.
This is how Muhammad Salim's day begins, by bringing his 100-year-old projector to life.
मेरा हिसाब से ये समय कि 50-52 मेरा हाथ से चला है। अब पिताजी का हाथ से जो चला है वो तो समझ लेंगे। अरे इसी ये प्रोजेक्टर भी जो है ये जापानी प्रोजेक्टर है। ये देखिए हाथ का बैलेंस है, समझे, जो मोटर काम कर रहा है आपका, मेरा हाथ काम कर रहा है। ऐसी आवाज समझ में नहीं आएगा।
Salim lives in Kolkata, India, and has a unique profession, mobile projectionist. His special cart forms a mobile cinema hall, holding a surprising number of children.
फिल्म जो चलता है पर्दे पे या हॉल वगैरह में या सीडी में या टीवी में, तो सिर्फ तो उन लोग पिक्चर देख सकते हैं ना, और हम जो गाड़ी में जो सजा के जाते हैं वो प्रोजेक्टर भी देखते हैं, जैसा कि लैंप कैसे जल रहा है वो देखते हैं, आवाज़ कैसा हो रहा है वो देखते हैं, ये चक्का कैसा घूम रहा है वो देखते हैं.
For 2 rupees, the kids get a taste of Bollywood. Most of them do not have a television, and it is the closest many will get to a cinema.
फिल्म का जो पूरा मेन जो सीन होता है, 3 घंटा के इंतजार में बैठे हुए कि गाना आएगा तो हम जब सुनेंगे, तो हम लोग तो 5 मिनट के अंदर में उनको सुना देते हैं, जना भी देते हैं.
Proper cinemas charge the equivalent of $2. Salim's charge is 2 cents.
अगर फिल्म लगा उन लोग का रिलीज जब हो जाता है तो टेलर तो उन लोग का घर में रखा ही वो रहता है. अब आप गए हम लाओ 2 दिन के लिए हम भी चला लें, वो हमको अगर दिया 2 दिन चलाने के बाद में आपका जो चीज़ है आपको रिटर्न कर दिया.
Since Salim has been doing this job, Bollywood has changed. From the black and white films of colonialism,
लेकिन उस जमाने में हर कोई इनकी एक झलक का दीवाना था.
Through the family dramas of early independence, to all singing, all dancing international Bollywood of today. Salim has an interesting way of keeping pace with changing trends.
रास्ते में हम गए, अगर पुराना फिल्म लगाए तो लड़का लोग बोलता है अंकल ये फिल्म है, अंकल ये फिल्म है, तो इसी हिसाब से हमको भी समझ में आता है.
Salim travels 12 kilometers every day and provides 6 hours of entertainment to hundreds of poor children. On an average, it earns him $3 a day. Not enough for a life of luxury. 6 members of his family live in this one-room flat. While Salim's wife prepares lunch for the family, he works on the machine. When Salim was offered $10,000 for his projector, money it would take him nearly 13 years to earn, he said no.
जो आज तक इसको महफूज इसी के लिए हम रख करके हैं. मेरा 12 साल का उम्र जब हुआ, उस टाइम में मेरा पिताजी जो इसे गुजर गया. उसका बाद में इसको हम चलाना जो शुरू किया, जो आज तक हम चला भी रहे हैं. मेरा लड़का लोग जितना भी हैं, ये फिल्म गाड़ी से परवरिश भी हुआ, उनको हम पढ़ाया लिखाया.
And he hopes his sons will do the same. His 13-year-old son Arshad is all set to step into his father's shoes.
सबसे अच्छे में तो हम लोग को मशीन लगता है. तब मशीन चलता है, जब भीड़ होता है, सब बहुत अच्छे लगते हैं. हर मोहल्ले में हम लोग जाते हैं, सब पहचाने. ऐसे जाते तो ऐसे बोलते हैं फिल्म वाला, फिल्म में चलेगा.
With the film cart rolling, these kids can not only watch glimpses of Bollywood films, but also learn their favorite songs. And sometimes break into a fight sequence.
Well, that's it for this fabulous picture show. How did you two find it? What did you think?
Yeah, it was great, actually. Yeah, we do like a debate, and we got one today.
You definitely got a debate. And what about the idea, Basil, of all the happy endings, the fixation there?
Well, you can always hope for a happy ending. I think life doesn't have one in store either, so...
Okay, no happy endings here, but we hope you'll join us anyway on the next show.
The oil industry has to please Mrs. Martin. Already today, she's used some 87 petroleum products, including the plastic bacon wrapper and the wax of the milk carton.
How would you rate the film out of 10 and why?
I would go for about 6.5, 7, because I think there were many areas that he could have touched on that he didn't.
People are ignorant, but I think people want to stay ignorant.
The way it kind of set out what the issue was very good. But in terms of addressing possible solutions, I think it failed badly.
I don't think the object of the film was to tell us what to do as a solution, simply to point out that we are going to need a solution.